We all know the name Rosa Parks, whose defiance on a Montgomery, Alabama bus became a turning point in the civil rights movement back in 1955. But chances are you may not have heard about this woman. Her name is Claudette Colvin. Most people don't know her story. As a teenager, she was arrested 9 months before Parks for the very same reason, refusing to give up her bus seat to a white person. Her story is a very important part of our civil rights history, and now there's a new development that you'll see only on CBS Mornings, and we love when this happens. Lead national correspondent, that's you, David Begnaud, has an interview that we will, and it's got a twist, as only you can do. I've been waiting for this all morning.
I can't wait for you to see this, and all of you. You don't hear about Claudette Colvin in the history books, but you should. She's now a great-grandmother, and for the past 66 years, she has lived with a criminal record. In what may be her final protest, she asked a judge in Alabama to clear her name by expunging her record, and the judge did it. This is her story, and as Gayle said, you do not want to miss the surprise at the end.
Needing assistance now,
It's very nice to meet you.
Claudette Colvin has spent most of her 82 years as a convicted juvenile delinquent who would go on to college, work as a nurse's aide, and raise 2 sons.
Do you think of yourself as an important figure in history?
No, I think of myself as a survival of the civil rights struggle.
Her place in the civil rights struggle began when she was 15 years old, at the back of a crowded Montgomery, Alabama bus after school with 3 friends.
I was sitting in the session that was allowed for colored people, and this white lady came. The bus driver demanded for the 4 seats.
And this is you and 3 others?
Students, yes.
So 3 of them got up?
Yes.
And you refused?
So I refused, because this wasn't an elderly white lady, this was a young white lady.
You're sitting there, your classmates get up and move.
Yes.
What was going through your head as to why you refused to stand?
I said I could not move because history had me glued to the seat. And they said, "How is that?" I said, "Well, it felt as though Harriet Tubman hands were pushing me down on one shoulder, and Sojourner Truth's hand was pushing me down on the other shoulder."
Now that happened 9 months before Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to give up her seat on a Montgomery bus, overshadowing for decades what a teenager had also done.
And the traffic patrolman came to the rear of the bus and asked me why I wasn't sitting there. I told him I was sitting there because I paid my fare and it's my constitutional rights.
Now, watching this interview from a nearby room was Judge Calvin Williams. Today, he is the presiding judge of the Montgomery Family Court.
And then what happened?
Oh, lo and behold, 2 squad car patrolmen stopped and, cut the bus off. And they stopped, and we said, "Oh, my."
We invited the judge to listen in and hear Colvin's account of what the police did to her in 1955.
And he asked me why I wasn't sitting there. And I was even more defiant. And I said, "I paid my fare, and it's my constitutional rights." He said, "Constitutional rights?" And all I know. And they put me in the squad car, and they handcuffed me through the window.
Claudette Colvin was jailed, charged with disturbing the peace, breaking segregation law, and found guilty of assaulting police officers, clawing them with her fingernails.
They said I clawed the policeman and I kicked the police. I didn't do all of that.
Was it the one and only time in your life that you've gone to jail?
Yes.
At the time I represented Claudette Colvin, there was no Rosa Parks case.
As a young attorney, Fred Gray, later portrayed by Cuba Gooding Jr. in the film Selma, took up her case. That's before he went on to defend Rosa Parks. In his book, he pays tribute.
The whole history of the civil rights movement may have been different, but for Claudette.
At the age of 16, she made headlines again as one of 4 plaintiffs in the lawsuit that would end Alabama's bus segregation in the landmark Browder versus Gayle Supreme Court decision.
When you won in court,
Yes.
you could sit in the front row if you wanted.
Yes.
And did you?
Yes.
But the charge of assaulting police officers remained. Fast forward to today. When Judge Calvin Williams in Montgomery, Alabama read her appeal, he expunged her 66-year-old criminal record.
And I'm no longer a juvenile delinquent at 82.
She was not present when the judge ruled. She didn't know his name. She didn't even know what he looked like.
We have a surprise.
That was a surprise.
We have a surprise for you.
What is a surprise?
Someone would like to meet you.
Hello, Ms. Colvin. Judge Calvin Williams.
Wow, 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 wow.
Judge Calvin Williams.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, Lord. Oh, my goodness.
On behalf of myself and all of the judges of Montgomery, offer my apology for an injustice that was perpetrated upon you.
Oh, this is a surprise.
So you didn't know that the judge who did this was African American?
No, I'm so proud.
The judge wasn't even born when Miss Colvin refused to give up her seat on that bus.
When she did this in 1955, there were no African American judges in Montgomery. She stood up for right, and now I'm the beneficiary and byproduct of that, and I could correct the wrong that was done to her.
Amen to that.
Amen to that.
Can I squeeze your hand?
Yes, ma'am. Please do. So great to meet you.
Oh, David, she's giggling like a little girl. All morning when we said surprise, you won't want to miss something, and I hope it lives up to it. But it did, it did.
And I hope we got some tissues here at the table.
Yes. I love how she called on the ancestors, Harriet and Sojourner, who had their hands on her shoulders and said, don't get up. I'm glued to this seat because of history.
Yeah.
Beautifully done.
She had been studying Black history in school,
That's right.
and it became so important to her that she just felt moved.
That's right.
And this is before the movement itself with Rosa Parks had taken off. She was independent of that.
And you may be wondering, why not Claudette Colvin? Why Rosa Parks? Why is that the one we hear about?
Yes.
And according to Miss Colvin, she was 15 and pregnant. And so she said the civil rights leaders didn't want a young rebel-rouser pregnant girl to represent the movement. Mrs. Parks was a well-respected secretary of the NAACP who, according to Miss Colvin, was lighter in color, and they thought that it would be more appealing to put her forward as a face of the movement.
And those were the times we were living in.
Yes.
It was a political movement based on
That's right.
skin tone.
Exactly
That's right.
right.
How you were perceived.
But Miss Colvin, in her graciousness, says, but that's not to take anything away from what Miss Parks did.
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
But why now? You may be wondering. Well, like, why do it now? You're 82. She said, when I saw the George Floyd protests, it kind of reignited a spirit in her, an activist spirit. And she said, I just wanted my kids and the great-grandbabies to see that even at 82 in a wheelchair, I still had a fight left.
You know, and we saw kids her age and younger out there protesting.
She was 15,
That's right.
David.
That's
She was
right.
15, it's a reminder for
We are
all of
walking in her footsteps.
Yes,
That's
we
right.
are. Thank you, Claudette Colvin.
Great
Thank
job,
you.
David.
What a lady.
The surprise lives up to it. Well done,
Yeah.
David. Thank you very much.